Hello again. So in this video I would like to talk about if and if else in Logo, review that a little bit, and then talk about similar conditionals in Python, the if else and elif in Python. So let's start with Logo. And I'm just going to go in here and look up if and if else. Oops, I meant to press the I. Okay, so if is a procedure that takes two inputs, either a true or false, as its first input. So we usually put some kind of predicate here that outputs true or false, and then a list to run. So something to do if this first part evaluates to true. All right, so here's the example that they give. If there are turtles on this page, we have them going forever, and then we say forward one and check. And the check procedure is written right here. Forward one is a primitive procedure. That's all. And forward is a primitive procedure that's already been written that needs one input. And check is this procedure right here. It says to check if 30 is less than distance from T2, distance to T2. So distance takes us one input, T2, and outputs a number. And if 30 is less than that number, then we turn towards T2. Okay, so that's just something that's happening over and over again. And then if else is very similar. It takes two inputs. The first input is either true or false, and then it has one instruction list that it runs if this first part evaluates to true, and another instruction list that it runs if this first part evaluates to false. Okay, and I think actually I'll run this example. Let me see if can I copy this. Oh no, it won't let me copy it directly, so I'll just type it in here. Okay, so I'm going to write a procedure to quiz. Question. Washington is ... If else. So there's another predicate called member that checks to see if something is a member of a list. And we'll say one of these can be a valid answer: USA, US, USA, or US. All right, and if this part here evaluates to true, then we'll announce congrats, and then if it evaluates to false, we'll announce oops. Okay, so now let's try running it here. Say quiz. Washington is, if I say China, it's going to say oops. No. What if I say USA? That's one of the choices. Congrats. Okay? So you can do a similar kind of thing in Python. We haven't talked about lists much in Python, so I'm not gonna do exactly this example. I'm gonna do something similar. Or I'm at least going to show you, what's available to you in Code Sculptor here. So actually, I'm going to take examples. Oh, yeah, I'm going to skip that. I was going to show something with and. I think I'll do that in the next lesson. So I'm going to bring up Code Sculptor again over here. All right, so let me see. Oh yeah, so I'm going to show you a couple of examples from this cool book, Game Programming, The Express Line to Learning. It's by, I think the guy is, yeah, by Andy Harris. There's some great stuff in here, especially if you want to later on, maybe even at some point in this class or after this class, if you want to get into Pygame, there's some good stuff in there on that. But anyhow, so let me get to the example. So, and I'm just kind of copying and pasting from. There are some slight differences. I think I mentioned that before between Code Sculptor and other implementations of Python that you might see, and also there's one thing in particular I know that's specific to Code Sculptor, but there are also things that have to do with, what version of Python you're using and stuff. So this might be slightly different from the example that's in the book. It's just I changed it to make it work in this environment. But like I said, the differences between Code Sculptor and other versions of Python are so slight, it's not going to be a big deal for you later on, as far as going to another 2.6 or 2.7 version of Python, and then to go to one of the 3.x versions of Python is going to be a little bit more work, but that's work you would have to do anyway, going from 2 point whatever to 3 point something. Okay, so let's look at this example. This says, say something nice if the user's name is Guido. So we're assigning, we have this variable first name, and we're assigning it the input from whatever input we get when we put up a prompt with this question, what is your first name? And then we print out, nice to meet you, comma. Oh, I don't know if we've seen this syntax before. You can use a plus to mush together strings. So I think what we did before was we used a comma in between. What will happen if you have a comma is, let me show that for a second. So if you print something, let's say we have a variable a equals tj, and you say print hello, comma a. It'll print hello tj, and that's fine. Or if you wanted a comma in there, you can put that in there, right? But what if you wanted to put a period at the end of this sentence? If you said comma, period, see there's a space there. So one thing that you can do in Python to kind of mush things together is use a plus, and that will, so see, and then the period's right next to the TJ. So the plus mushes things right next to each other. The comma will put them together, but with a space in between. All right, so that's what this plus here is for. And now we're going to do our, remember we said equals equals is for comparisons in, to compare if two things are equal in Python. You never do this. Okay, that's assignment. The single equal is for assignment. The double equal is for comparing. So if first name equals Guido, print, hey, thanks for inventing Python. So if you're curious about who Guido is, you can look on Wikipedia. Guido van Rossum is the guy who invented Python. You can read all about him if you want. So let's try then running this. Let's get rid of that other stuff. So we're assigning whatever we output, whatever this input we get from the user, we're assigning that to first name, and then we'll say nice to meet you, first name. And then if the first name is equal to Guido, we'll say thanks for inventing Python. So if I just say, so now it says what is your first name, if I just put in TJ, it just says nice to meet you, TJ, right? But if I put Guido, now let's try Guido. Now it says, nice to meet you, Guido. Hey, thanks for inventing Python. Okay, so that's something you can do with if. There's another syntax. So this works like the if in Logo pretty much. And then there's also something that's similar to the if-else in Logo, where you just say, copy and paste that one here. Oops. Where you say if first name equals Guido, and then the stuff you want to do, and then you say else. Oh, really important. I think we talked about indentation when we're talking about functions. When you're doing if or if else, you also need to indent whatever you want to happen after the if. You want to indent that. In fact, let me just show you what happens. I'll back up for a second. Oh. Just want to back up to that other one. So if I did not indent here, let's just see what happens. It says it's bad input, so you can't actually do that. Or if I said, what if I wanted to say, hey, thanks for inventing Python, print, I think you are really cool. So then, put Guido again. Okay, so that works because I indented both of these lines. If I indented the first one and didn't indent the next one, this will work, but it's always going to do this line, because this is no longer, once you get rid of the indentation, it's no longer part of the block that goes with the if. Okay. So let's go to our if else. All right. So now we have if else. So here, notice we have our if part. Oh, and this colon is really important too. So you put in Python, you put your your comparison right here. So this is something that's going to evaluate to true or false. It could be a comparison. It could be anything else that's going to evaluate to true or false, right? And then you put a colon. So it's similar to when we were defining functions. Remember, we needed to put a colon in there before we had our indented block. So you put a colon, and then you indent all the stuff that you want to happen if this evaluates to true. And then you write else. And it's just the word else followed by a colon, and then anything that you want to happen for the else, you indent it under that block. Okay. So this one says, if your first name is Guido, say thanks for inventing Python. Otherwise, say, have you seen Guido around? So let's try that one. So if I say Guido, it says, nice to meet you, Guido, because we always do that, right? And then it says, hey, thanks for inventing Python. Or if I say TJ, it says, nice to meet you, TJ. Have you seen Guido around? Okay, so that's that one. Now there's one other thing that Python has that there really isn't an equivalent or a simple equivalent in Logo, which is this keyword elif, which is basically is just short for else if. Okay, so if it's true that the first name is Guido, we're going to say thanks for inviting Python. Else, if the first name is Linus, we're going to write Linux rocks. So, and there's you can also look up Linus Torvalds. I'm probably murdering that name. Oh, here's the pronunciation.
Linus Torvalds.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's how you say it. He's the inventor of Linux. And, oops. So if you want to tell him Linux rocks, you could have that in your elif. And then else, print. And notice, see, we have two things that we want to happen if the else condition is met. So in this case, the else condition is only met if both of these guys are false. Okay, so if the if and the elif, and you can have more elifs if you want too. Okay, so I could say, well, let's run this one first. So we could say Guido, thanks for writing Python, or Linus, Linux rocks, or TJ. Oh, I'm going to have to get a cooler name. Or I could stick in another elif here. Thanks for teaching this class. Okay, so you can play around with this and add in your own stuff. Okay? Yeah, so that's if, elif. So and again, this else would only happen if none of these are true. If I didn't put in Guido, Guido, Linus, or TJ. And that's if, elif, and else in Python.